Welcome back to the Playdate by Freshly Picked. I'm your host, Kaitlin Hansen.
And I'm Meg Bench.
Hey, Meg, how are ya?
Good. Thank you so much.
Good. How's your day going?
Pretty good. Just getting kids off to school and appointments and life. But
Just all the
we're
things
here now.
running around.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's like such a nice day today that I need to spend at least an hour outside.
Definitely, because you don't know how much more of these days we're going to have.
Yeah, I'm like, it's already getting crisp. So I'm
Yes.
like,
Had
need
a
to live it
jacket
up.
on this morning.
Yes.
Then by the time I got here, I'm like, oh, it's kind of nice outside.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in this stage right now where like I don't know how to dress.
Yes, definitely. Like layers that you can remove.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Amen to that. Well, thank you so much for joining today. We are going to hear one of your birth stories.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, do you know which birth story are you going to share?
I think I'll share my first.
Okay,
Like
yay.
start at the beginning, right?
Yes, I love it. So your first girl,
Yes.
10 years old now.
Yes.
Okay, I love it. Well, tell us just a little bit about leading up to the birth, like a couple weeks.
Okay.
Maybe like how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So my father-in-law was actually my doctor.
No way.
So that's a little different.
How was that?
I was totally against it.
Yeah.
I was like not here for it, but it's the first grandkid.
Okay.
And my mother-in-law told me, she was like, he'll never ask you, but if you let him do this, it'll be the best day of his life.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, best day of his life. That's kind of a lot of pressure. So ended up letting him do it. And by like the end of it, I was so grateful.
Yeah.
It was actually really difficult. Like
Yeah.
it was a rough birth.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, just call my father-in-law. He'll be here.
And I'm sure that was like comforting. And I think with your first two, like you don't know what questions to ask.
Yes.
You don't like, you're like, oh my gosh, am
You
I
don't know what
bugging
you're
them? They
doing.
think I'm annoying.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm sure that was nice.
I mean, I
just
had
to-
my own on-call doctor at
Okay,
the end of the day.
yes.
So yeah,
Amen to
it
that.
was nice.
No, that's so nice.
So a few weeks like before getting to that 40-week point was just like, if anything happened, just call him father-in-law. Like, what's this? What's
Yeah.
that? But at 38 weeks and like a few days, my brother actually got in a motorcycle accident.
Oh my gosh.
So he was in the hospital up in Salt Lake at the U of U.
Yeah.
So I'm like 38 weeks pregnant. I'm going up there. I'm spending like all day there at the hospital with him. He had to have some surgeries and whatnot.
Ugh.
And I was like, I asked one of the nurses, can I have some pillows? I'm like
Yeah.
super preggers. And
Yeah.
like, this is uncomfortable. And she was like, you're not pregnant. I was like,
You're like, no, I am though.
I am. Like, excuse me. Stood up and I'm like, I was small, but definitely pregnant.
Yeah.
So that was kind of all the chaos leading up to it. And then the day I left my brother at the hospital, I went to like my 39-week appointment.
Mhm.
And they were like, you're having a baby today.
Oh my
Let's
gosh.
go.
Like, were you
So
in
I
labor or like
was
you were
not
just
in
like
labor? They did. My blood pressure was really high.
Okay.
So at that point, they were like preeclampsia, like really high.
Yeah. So they're like, we
Straight
gotta
to the
get
hospital. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, wait.
Were you like
What?
freaking out at that point? Because you're like,
Freaking out.
I didn't plan on this.
Yes. And it's your first one.
Yeah.
Already it's like freaky to be in labor. And then they were like, hey, go
For
right now.
sure.
Straight there. Like,
my
you don't have time to
gosh.
go home. I was like, are you sure?
Oh my gosh.
So that's when I was like, hey, to my husband, call
Yeah.
your dad. Like, call your dad. I need him there.
Yes.
So that's where it kind of came in really clutch, having like that connection with your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I did go into the hospital at 39 weeks, got induced. They were like emergency induction, pushing everything. I was able to go naturally without having a C-section because they
Oh
were
my
worried
gosh.
if it didn't go
Yeah.
fast enough, they would do a C-section.
Yes.
But I did end up having a hypertensive crisis.
Okay.
My
Yeah.
blood
Tell us what
pressure-
that means.
Yes. So my blood pressure got to a point, usually you get an epidural. They like push the epidural really
Yeah.
heavily because it makes your blood pressure go down, and it made mine go up.
Oh my gosh.
So my blood pressure was 220 over 190. And
Whoa.
that is like risk for heart attack and stroke.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a lot of chaos. Like I don't remember a lot
Were
of
you
it
like
'cause it was all
feeling
just,
like how were you feeling? Like good, like physically
jittery. No, like
bad.
jittery and totally, I feel like out of it.
Okay.
Like if they came and were like, okay, it's time to do X, Y, or Z, I wouldn't have been able to have like a coherent conversation.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what is happening.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a little bit of chaos for sure.
Yeah.
Had to do magnesium because of the preeclampsia.
Okay.
They ended up giving me extra because everything
Just
that
was
was
so high.
happening.
Yeah.
Right? Life is crazy. But got to the point of pushing.
Mhm.
So like, hey, we're surviving. We're there. It's time to go. It's go time.
Yeah. Okay. So you were just about to push.
Yes. Yeah. So I remember them telling me, "Okay, it's your first kid. You're going to push with a nurse for a hot minute
Yeah.
because it takes a long time." And that was another one that I was like, "No, I am not."
Yeah.
Husband, call your dad.
Yes.
I am
Get him
not
here.
doing this. And luckily he had just been sleeping in like the doctor's
Lounge thing. Yeah.
area in the hospital because I pushed really quickly. Like I pushed for like 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank goodness he was there then.
Right? Like
Yeah.
bing, bang, done. And so my daughter started to go into crisis as I was pushing too.
Oh my gosh.
So by the last
Like heart rate dropping.
the last like 3 or 4 minutes, she was far enough
Yeah.
through like the canal or whatnot, right? That he
Mhm.
was like, "Hey, I don't care if it's a contraction, you're just gonna push. You don't
Yeah.
stop. Like push, push, push." He's like pulling.
Yes.
It was just a lot of chaos. But
Yeah.
it worked out. So got her out. But at that point, I guess the magnesium had gotten into her system.
Okay.
So when she came out, she was just gray
Mhm.
and limp. So my father-in-law
I'm sure that
grabbed
was
her.
terrifying for you.
Super scary. I feel like everything was just so intense in the moment.
Yeah.
Like looking back now, I'm like, oh, that wasn't bad. But not having gone through it, I'm like, no, that was freaky.
Mhm.
She's limp. He has her in one hand and she's just like a fish, just like a dead fish.
Yeah.
Grabs her. They had that the internal monitor on
Yes.
her head, and he just rips it out and just like runs her off, takes
This
her
like is
over.
making me like emotional.
It was like intense. And I know that I say that, and then part of me goes, well, other people have it so much worse. And I'm like, no, but in the moment
No,
of
that's
like
so
not
scary.
living through this.
And like
so
that being
freaky.
his granddaughter too, I'm sure
Yes.
he was like, oh my gosh.
And that's the thing too, having him do it, I'm like, no one else will care for
Yeah.
her to the level that he would.
Yeah.
Right? They did have to do some like chest compressions, clear her airway, yada,
Yeah.
yada, yada. But she ended up breathing and then like it was fine
Yeah.
at the end of the day. But a little bit crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. And are you like still not feeling good, kind of just like out of it a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
So I wasn't able. So apparently the amount of magnesium that I ended up having was a lot.
Mhm.
I was not able to lift up my arms.
Really?
Like after she was born.
Dang.
So they put her on my chest, but I couldn't hold her. I couldn't nurse. Like I wasn't able to, and they say, nurse right away or within the first couple hours or whatnot. I wasn't able to nurse for like quite a few hours
Mhm.
because I couldn't hold her.
Yeah.
Because I felt dead. I was
Yeah, you're
"Okay,
like, I feel like
I'm
a floppy
done."
pancake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, after that was out of my system, about 24 hours later, even my husband was like, I wasn't sure if you were going to be like you
Yeah.
again.
I'm sure he
But-
was terrified too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he can only express his so much because, like, I'm
Yeah.
the one going through it.
Right. He's like,
But
trying
about
to stay
24
calm.
hours later, he was like, oh, you're you again.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am. I'm a real human being.
Yes. So did they take her to the NICU then?
So they didn't end up they did bring in the like respiratory team
Okay.
just to the delivery room.
Yeah.
But she didn't end up having to go to the NICU. Like, didn't really end up having any issues, like
Good.
short term or long term.
Yeah.
It was just in the moment, very intense.
I like didn't even know that that was a thing.
I
That's
know.
wild.
Like, if you don't live it,
Yeah.
you just don't know it.
Oh
right?
my gosh. Okay,
So it
so
was-
with that then, do you feel like knowing what you know now,
yes.
is there anything that you would do differently? And I mean, you've had two babies since,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Honestly, I don't feel like there's anything I would do differently because I didn't know anything differently.
Yeah.
And even now, like if I had to live it again, knowing what I know, I still don't think there is much I would change.
Yeah.
Because it was all just pretty quick, like emergency things.
Like they just had to do what they had to do.
There wasn't a chance to be like, oh, I don't want that. Or I don't want my epidural. Like they pushed the epidural so heavily, being
Yeah.
like, it's gonna help. things like that I was
Right.
like, okay, just do whatever you need to do
Yes, to make sure
to
that
like be okay.
Yeah, well, because I think too in that situation, it's like it's a matter of like life-saving
Yes,
things.
yes. In a situation like that, it was speed and like, let's do what we have to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, great.
Do you feel like with your father-in-law being the doctor, do you feel like that made it a more like, do you guys feel like you have like a closer relationship because of that?
Yes, I would say so. He is my favorite. He's my favorite in
Yeah.
regards to my husband's family.
Yes.
So that probably played a part in it. But also, he has, so my oldest, her name's Oakley.
Mm-hmm.
He
Cute.
has a very, very close relationship with her.
That is tender.
And I do feel like that experience definitely played a part in that too.
Yeah.
And he's, a doctor. He does this all the time. He's seen emergencies. So through it all, he was just like calm, cool, and collected.
Which that's exactly what you want.
Which, yes, like I was thinking, oh, if he's not worried, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
But my mother-in-law has told me like he went home that night and he was rocked. She was like, it was apparently really scary.
Yeah.
Like he was not sure if Oakley was going to be okay.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
kind of like solidified in my mind, like, oh, that was kind of a crisis.
Yeah.
Even though he made it seem like it was no big deal, I'm like, oh, it was. Okay. It was a big deal, but we're fine.
Well, and I'm sure that was like validating too, because in that
Yes.
situation, you're like, I don't know how to.
Like, was this normal? Am
Yeah.
I overreacting?
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely validating. And again, they're really close still now.
Yeah.
She goes over to their house and she will like lay in bed and snuggle with grandpa at like 10 years old.
Wait, I love that.
Yeah.
That's the sweetest. How was your recovery then after?
It was rough.
Yeah.
Especially now knowing having 2 more, I'm like, oh, my first one was a tough recovery.
Yeah. Did you tear?
I did tear. They didn't have to cut or anything, but
Okay,
I
good.
did tear.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I wasn't myself again for a hot minute.
Yeah.
And I ended up staying in the hospital an extra day just because I don't even know like what their reasoning was.
Yeah.
I think it was just recovery based.
Did you like that or hate that? Like, were you itching to go home?
I thought I liked it because I was like, I don't want to go home. I'm
Yeah.
not ready to go home with a baby. Like, I don't know
Right.
what that's like. Then once I got home, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
I should have gone home. Like,
Just being
this
in
is
your
just
space.
my bed, my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So physically rough. What about mentally? Like, did it take like a minute to adjust back to things?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to deep dive into the mental, I actually had postpartum depression
Okay.
after her as
I'm
well.
so sorry.
It's rough.
It shouldn't be allowed. Like, truly shouldn't be allowed.
I'm like, I'm already doing everything with my body and everything just changed. And now, like, the mental aspect of it too, like,
yeah.
that's hard. And I don't have any family nearby.
Okay.
So my husband's family's nearby, but at this point, we'd still only been married like a few years.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not calling your mom like in my
Yeah.
crisis. No
for
way.
sure.
So it's hard when you don't feel like you have your village, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so. I didn't have it with my first at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I was expecting to because I had a history of anxiety and depression. Like I was
Yeah.
just like waiting for it kind
Yes.
of. And it never happened. But then it slapped me upside the head with my second. And it's
Mhm.
like, I do have family that are close in like
Yeah.
the community. And like it was still rough. So I can't imagine not having those things. Like
Yeah.
and it is so interesting how it like chooses to manifest itself too.
Yes. Yeah. It's different every time.
Yeah.
And it's different than normal depression. Like you said, like normal anxiety and depression. It's just different. And getting out of it is like its own journey.
Oh, for sure. I'm like, we need to do a full deep dive.
Yeah, that's a whole story.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I'm like, I always try to talk about it a lot on the podcast because I don't think it should be something that people feel embarrassed or
Mhm.
sad or, I mean, you're valid in feeling sad and feeling the way that you
Yes,
feel, but
yes.
like you shouldn't feel bad about feeling
There's like
those
no
ways.
shame.
No.
No shame. And it isn't talked about.
No.
Like I like that you try and bring it up. I feel like so my oldest is 10.
Mm-hmm.
10 years versus when I had this last one, is already a big change in like the mental health,
Yes.
like community and like how people perceive it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even now, it's not addressed enough.
Oh,
so
totally. And I'm like, I always just want like the whole goal with the Playdate is for it to be a safe place and a place where people can relate. And
yeah,
if you need things, ask for help. And,
Yes.
you know, if you have nobody out there, please reach out to us because there are so many resources that are available. But I know what it feels like to be stuck in that
Yes.
moment and feel like you just
there
can't do
is
one more
nothing.
thing.
Yeah, there is nothing. And you're not going to go and find all the X, Y, or Z that might be
No.
out there. You just need
No,
something.
you can't.
Yeah.
You don't have capacity. No.
And I feel like with this podcast, it's very evident that there are tons of women who have experienced something similar, whatever it may be. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's probably someone out there who's like, I've been in that boat.
For sure. And I'm like, and thank you so much for sharing your birth story. I think it's good to hear all kinds of birth stories, whether it is a little scary or it did go perfectly, because no birth is going to go the way that you initially planned.
Yeah.
And there's just things that are out of your control. And I think it's helpful to hear these, not as something to like scare other
Freak you
moms
out.
or just like it's nice to be informed. Like education is power.
Definitely, definitely. Especially because it's something you don't know until you do it.
Oh,
And even
for
after
sure.
you do it, next time it'll be different.
Yeah, no, every single time it's different. So I always like to finish off like what piece of advice would you give to a mom that is about to have a baby, about to give birth?
About to give birth. Good question. I feel like I have a couple of ideas. A big one is to ask the questions. Like, just like we were saying, you're not informed. I feel like doctors do this all day, every day, that they kind of get to a point where they don't even think like, oh, maybe I should inform you of this or that. Like, it's just routine. If you haven't experienced it, it's not routine.
No.
So it's okay to ask all the questions.
Yeah.
I am like here for it. And ideally, a good doctor is as well.
For sure.
I think that can be very empowering, like you said.
I like that. I forgot I was going to ask one more question.
Okay.
It's actually my favorite question.
Yes.
Tell me about the mom that you hope to be.
Okay. The mom I hope to be.
And this is a tough
one. Best mom, right?
Yeah.
I hope to be a present mom. I think that's really important. That's something that I lacked for a lot of years. And also, I want to be the mom that not only my kids, but other kids feel safe around.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want all the friends I want to be the friend house.
Yes.
Yes. I want to be the safe place. Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of the things. We love having new people on and just hearing all the different birth stories. So thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thank you for inviting me. This is a fun experience.
Love it. Okay, well, we'll see y'all next time. Bye.